r/AskReddit by Reddify. Liars of Reddit. What was the biggest lie you got away with? Not biggest, but most amusing. My wife and I were in Mexico. Stopped at a convenience store to get some snacks and stuff. The clerk told her how much it was in Spanish. My wife looked confused for a moment, so I repeated the total for her in English. I could tell it made an impression on her. For a long time after, when talking about foreign language, she would tell people how quickly I pick up on it when traveling. I know this was when she first formed that opinion. I've never told her. I read the number on the cash register. Don't think it's the biggest, but a favorite of mine. 7th grade English. We have a project to pick any long novel, read it and do an oral book report to the class with a Q&A. I pick The Shining, and had I given it a shot I would have realized it's a page turner. But to 7th grade me it just looks like a long ass book that is not as fun as video games. The teacher set aside a few minutes of each class for us to just sit and read our book, leading up to the deadline. She sees that I haven't read very much, and keeps badgering me that I need to be reading more at home. I keep assuring her that I'm a fast reader. I'll catch up quickly. I'll get it done, etc. Cut to the day before my presentation. I have read Jack Hit. I, of course, rent the movie instead. I watch it twice just to be sure. I do my presentation, being as vague about the plot as I can get away with, and throw in some BS about my opinions on Stephen King's writing style that I looked up on the internet. I take questions from my classmates. No problem. But teacher appears skeptical this whole time. I mean, there is a very popular movie based on this book, and I was not on pace to have any chance at finishing this thing. It doesn't take a genius to be suspicious, and I know we have to end by letting her ask a question. So I'm a little worried. Finally, I ask her for her question. Teacher, yes, Orange Kid. I was wondering if you could tell us some of the major differences between the book and the movie. Duck. My heart sinks for just a moment, and then I come up with it. I'm sorry, I don't know. I never saw the movie. I'm terrible at thinking on my feet, so I'm proud of that moment. I was interviewing for a bunch of exclusive private high schools. During one of my interviews, the lady asked what worldly current events I cared about. I ducking froze and couldn't think of any news story at all lol. I paused and just said the war, and burst out crying uncontrollably because I had nothing else to say on the matter except it sucks. So I'm crying, and the lady goes, oh no, sweetheart, do you know someone overseas? And I just nodded, and she apologized profusely. When it came time for my parents to join us in the interview, she told my parents she was sorry about our family member fighting in Iraq. They just looked at her and nodded. Didn't say anything. Had no idea what she was talking about. Anyways, this woman fell in love with me and said I was such a uniquely compassionate 13-year-old. She ended up calling our house the night we were supposed to tell them if I would attend or not. I felt bad, but I ended up somewhere else. This isn't my biggest lie, but for some reason popped in my head. When I was a teenager I had a group of friends who liked to just drive around and smoke weed. My mom would always wait up, but since she's the type who prefers to fall asleep around 9 PM she was pretty groggy by the time curfew rolled around. One night I looked at the clock and was going to be late, so I called home. Keep in mind it's the 90s and we have a landline phone. I have an extension in my room. Mom answers and without thinking, me, oh, I've got the phone. Mom, it's for me. You can go to sleep. Sorry if it woke you up. Mom, you're home? Me, yeah. Have been for a while. Sorry, I thought you were asleep. Night, Mom. To which she turtled and fell back asleep. I sneak in a few hours later through the backsliding door. Did this a few more times throughout high school. It'd never work now because of cell phones. That's it, guys. TL. Doctor took advantage of outdated phone technology to fool sleepy mom into thinking I made curfew. I failed my final year at university, but couldn't face the shame of telling my parents. So I told them I passed. They wanted to go to my graduation ceremony, so I faked an illness and said I wouldn't be able to attend. This was so they wouldn't book flights. Then at the last second I told them I was feeling better and would attend. I got my buddy's graduation photo and got my face photoshopped into his. I sent this to my folks, where they framed it. 15 years later it's still on their living room wall. Obviously I had to retake the final year, but couldn't ask my folks for money. So I just said I was going to stay and look for work whilst I planned my career. Worked my ass off that summer to save every cent I would need for upcoming year. Got a bank loan and maximum sum credit cards. My final year was really tough as I had to work evenings and weekends to pay rent, food and tuition. I passed though. I went to my real graduation ceremony and felt really sad I couldn't tell my parents they could attend as I didn't want to tell them I lied. This one is relatively innocent, but I like it. I was on a trip with my then girlfriend slash now wife to the Twin Cities. We are nerdy slash history people. We were going to take a tour of a local historical house later that day, but had some time to kill. We actually parked in the lot for St. Paul's Cathedral. I really had to piss, so I convinced my wife that the church would likely be open to the public and would have easily accessible bathrooms. When we walk in the front doors there's a group of a few dozen people just standing there. They all turn to look at us. I felt like we did something wrong just by being there. Then someone at the head of the group speaks up. "Hey, are you here for the tour? We've been waiting for you." I have no idea what's going on, but I decide to play along. "Yes," I respond. "Sorry we're late, but do you mind if I use the restroom first?" They agreed and we got a private, guided tour of the whole cathedral including the crypts below. It ended up being the highlight of the trip. No idea what that group was, or if we were supposed to have paid, or what. There is a social circle I'm in that all think I'm 4 years older than I am. It originated as a way for underage me to get a drink in a bar. And well, I never exposed the truth. So now a couple dozen friends and even a couple short-lived girlfriends all think that I'm exactly 4 years older than I am. I have been to birthdays, engagement parties, and even a wedding with these people. I still regularly go out to get drinks with this group. We play some sports together. We watch a lot of movies. We have good times and bad. But my life has this big 4-year gap in it that, through years of stories and questions, has become a false period. Effectively I took 2 parts of my life and expanded them to make the dates add up. I lived in Brazil before college. But to this group, that was 3 years instead of 1. And I lived in New Zealand after college. But again, 1 year becomes 3. False dates for graduations and different steps in life have been a little hard to keep track of, but I manage. Honestly, I only don't tell them because of how long it has been. Plenty of these people are younger than I claim to be, but I fear the awkwardness of exposing a lie they have believed for years. I told my English class in grade 9 or 10 that I had tried out for American Idol. Even though I'm Canadian, I was homesick the day of the tryouts. So I had a pretty good setup I thought. One of the guys called me on my hit, asked me to bring in my paper number, the thing that the contestants wear on their shirt, to give them an ID number. My dad used to do bike races. He had a bunch of those things. I cut off the top that said British Columbia Racing or something like that, and brought that in. The guy was flabbergasted. My teacher then asked me what song I sung. So I said I just wanted to get on TV, so I sung the Pokemon theme song. Teacher then wanted me to sing it, but I said I was too shy. No one ever asked me about it again. Sorry Brian. You got me. You deserve to know. I told some people in my elementary school there was a secret level in Super Mario 64. I was jealous that everyone had a Nintendo 64 and my family couldn't afford one. So I convinced people not only that I did have an N64, but also that I had found a secret level that they didn't know about. Not exactly a lie, but convinced a friend once that men only have one ball, and he had some sort of disease. He went to see a doctor next day. Edit. Wow, didn't expect this to get this many upvotes. To make things a little clear, it wasn't just me. We were 10, 12 friends sitting in a circle, and it started as a prank and everyone got in. He turned to everyone, and we were like, yes dude, all of us have only one ball. So it was more like peer pressure. Funny thing is that he was not some teenager, but like 21, 22 yo, and a virgin at the time. I live in a third world country, so there is no such thing as exit here. Most of the it is spread through water and boys talking to each other, which sometimes is not so accurate. And apparently there are people with only one ball. I had a classmate in 7th grade who was famous for having just one ball, but I thought it was just a prank. Also, as per the Reddit tradition. Thanks for the gold, stranger. My first year walking to school alone was the 7th grade, and I was late a lot. It got to a point that the teachers told me I would have to do all the day's chores, putting chairs down in the morning, wiping boards clean, cleaning after lunch, putting away chairs and supplies etc. If I was late again, well, the next day I was running late as usual. Being a lazy sob that I am, I knew I had to do something to get out of doing the daily chores. So when the teacher asked me why I was late, I thought back on the assembly we had a few weeks prior on school safety. So I told the teacher that a strange man pulled up to me when I was coming into school grounds and asked me to come with him to see some puppies. I honestly thought that would be a good enough excuse and it would be the end of it. Ducking? Nope. School was suspended for the rest of the day. Police were called and my parents were called in. I was interviewed for the entire day. Had to describe the man, the car, everything. They ended up hiring a security officer for the grounds because of that incident and put in a few new cameras. We had quarterly school assemblies because of it too. And it was all for nothing because less than a week later I was late again and had to do all the daily chores.